This is Buck Johnson from Aerosmith and the Hollywood Vampires and Joe Perry Project, and you're listening to Nothing Shocking Podcast.
Want to know what's going on in the world of music? Then tune in to the Nothing Shocking Podcast, a non-genre based, all-ages friendly rock and roll program. Join us weekly for interviews with all your favorite rock stars from the mainstream to the underground. You can find us at nothingshocking.libsyn.com or anywhere you download podcasts.
We're putting the band back together.
The numbers all go to 11.
I'm talking about bands that rock. Led Zeppelin. What about Sabbath? AC/DC. Motorhead.
Does that mean it's louder? Is it any louder?
Well, it's one louder, isn't it?
We're not worthy. We're not worthy.
Why don't you just make 10 louder and make 10 be the top number and make that a little louder?
These go to 11.
I get up off the ground and raise my head. Days like this, think I should be dead. One for Satan, two for me. Let's cheat the devil, it's fun, don't you agree?
Welcome to the Nothing Shocking Podcast. I'm your co-host, Jeff Untied, and with me in Dog Bowl Studios is
Coach Nez.
You can find the Nothing Shocking Podcast on Libsyn or any podcatchers. Like our Facebook page or follow us on X at No Shock Pod.
You can also find the Nothing Shocking Podcast on Rock Rage Radio every Sunday morning at 7 a.m. Central Time. Our sponsor is Ragged Records, located in downtown Rock Island, Illinois, and downtown Davenport, Iowa. We'd like to thank the Hong Kong Sleepover for allowing us to use their music for our intro and bumper ending. Tonight's guest is
Buck Johnson of Aerosmith,
Hollywood Vampires,
and Whiskey Falls.
Yeah, great interview. He's going to be releasing his new single or re-releasing his new single under his name.
Yeah, the original was recorded by Carlos Santana and Steven Tyler.
Just Feel Better is the name of the track.
Yeah.
Let's get to that interview.
All right, good night.
Good night. Buck, welcome to the Nothing Shocking Podcast. I'd like to introduce you, my co-host, Jeff Untied.
Buck, thanks for joining us tonight.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me, guys.
Oh, we're so excited. So this February 23rd, you will be re-releasing your single, Just Feel Better, along with a music video. Can you talk a little bit more about re-releasing the song and the arrangements and everything that went into it?
Absolutely. I wrote the song with my good friends Damon Johnson and Jamie Houston, and this was many years ago. And it was one of those things where it just kind of wrote itself, and we had no intention of trying to write necessarily a hit song for a placement. It just kind of fell into that pathway, and it led to Clive Davis, who was looking for this type of song for Carlos Santana, and they got Steven Tyler to do the vocals. This is back in 2005.
Yeah.
It was a single released internationally first, and it did very well. Most played song in Australia, number one in countries like Italy and many countries. Anyway, years passed. I've been in many bands, and the encouragement of friends was, hey, you sang the demo, you should put out the song yourself. So I'm releasing an album later this year in September, and we decided to let this my version, my production, to be the first single, and along with the release of the video, which is directed by Rick Cabello from Dead Horse Branding, and really excited for everyone to see it and hear it.
Well, we're excited for you. Let's go back to the, releasing singles at a time opposed to releasing albums. Obviously we know album sales are not what they were, and they probably will never be again. But we see so many artists now that are releasing singles at a time, maybe an EP. Albums seem like they're almost like a lost art now. But, for you at this portion of your career, I guess in your solo career, what kind of pressure did you kind of put yourself under to release a full-length album, I guess, upcoming?
No pressure, and again, I think it is, when I came up, we used to wait in line on Tuesdays for, to get the vinyl, that came out. And it was a different time. You toured to support the album that you came out. Now you make an album to support your touring, because touring is really the main way artists can make money, touring and selling merchandise. The music has become just the flame that fires up everything else you can make money at, for most of us. There are a few exceptions, a Taylor Swift or whoever, but the album is just still something that I feel, that's the way I look at it, as a cycle of songs. And I've already got the next one ready to go. I was a songwriter and as a producer, I've been doing it for a while, and this record had songs that were newly written and some that were from back catalog, and including Just Feel Better, which had been released by Carlos Santana. It just seemed to fit for this record. The next record will be a little different. And then I'm just, what do I have to lose? I just want to get the music out there. And, if it moves the needle to where more people are exposed to my singing, my songwriting, and my production, then that's great. And that's why I feel no pressure at all.
Oh, very good.
Yeah.
It does feel, though, that we're in this era of, like I said, singles are released digitally on the daily now. But it almost feels like, we're almost going in reverse as far as releasing music. Back in the 50s, it was releasing 45s and what have you. Mm-hmm. Do you feel as though that is kind of what the era of music is right now? It's kind of going in reverse when it comes to releasing new music?
Well, yeah, because it's kind of dictated by the business model that exists now. You don't really make money selling albums. And again, you make an album so you can go out and tour and make money there. So singles are just a way to, back in the day when I had a record deal, we would, my band, they would work a single at radio for many weeks or months. Mm-hmm. Now it's like every 6 weeks you put out another single, and I guess what they called, you do 3 or 4 at a time, and they call it the waterfall effect for the algorithms. Yeah. All these things I don't quite understand, but I know that it has a purpose and an effect, is to get your brand, your name out there, more exposure. Look, I've been fortunate over the years to collaborate with many great songwriters and be in bands. I've always felt like to be surround myself with excellence. I always say if I'm the best one in the room, I'm in the wrong room. So I continuously, work every day at it, and you release these songs, as singles. And yes, it is like the 50s. It's there's 100,000 songs a day released online, and that's a very conservative number, by the way. And so how do you rise above the white noise of everything out there? So you just have to keep it coming. The consistency of releasing singles every 6 weeks, the attention spans are really short. And so if you can keep the consistency of releasing music, that's why some artists release EPs instead of an album, because they can release an EP and then they've got a whole new thing, another EP coming out 6 months later, as opposed to an album in one burst, Mm-hmm. I guess there's different strategies. I don't know. I started this whole process of making this album back in 2019, actually, when I was on tour with Aerosmith, and we were doing a residency in Las Vegas. And as you're there for about a month each time, I'm not a gambler. I don't party. But I knew I needed something to do because there's a lot of off days. And so I decided, hey, you know what? I'll make an album, And so I did it. And I had it mastered, and then once I had it mastered, a week later we shut down due to the pandemic. Mm-hmm. And so I'm like, well, what can I do now? Because I can't spend any more money on this, because that's really the promotion and publicity is where you spend most of your money for pushing a single or an album. So I just sat tight with it, and during the 2020 and 21. many things changed. Events in my life happened, and I wrote a bunch of new songs. And so I trashed most of that record and started over and added to it and took some of those songs and got them remixed or whatever. And here we are now. So I'll probably release about 4 singles before the album comes out in September. But I'm really excited about Just Feel Better, and to, a lot of fans in Aerosmith camp and Hollywood Vampires may know me as the keyboard player, but actually I'm a singer first. And so I wanted to give that exposure and as a songwriter and as a producer. So I think, this will give me the opportunity for that.
Oh, we're excited for you.
Well, we talk to a lot of artists when you said trash your songs, I thought of, they just throw them away. But do you keep some stuff back and kind of hold on to it to maybe rework it later?
But yeah, over the years, I just started filling up this Excel sheet, a database of all the songs that I've written and songs that I have recorded. Having a studio over the last, 20 years. And, and the ones that I recorded, I'm like up to 300, which can sound impressive, but I know guys in Nashville and Los Angeles who, have way more than that. Yeah. But still, it's a significant number. And some of them were written for a purpose, for another artist. And I just produced a couple singles for this female Texas country artist. It was kind of out of the blue. I met this guy who's her manager and radio promoter, and he said, "Hey, you got some songs for this girl I'm working?" And I'm like, "Well, let me hear her, and I'll let you know." And I dug back. Oh, here's a song I wrote 15 years ago. She's perfect for it, and they loved it. And so I produced it, and it was #1 on the Texas country charts in November of 2022. So, those things can pop back up. You can dig back in your catalog. And like for this record, for instance, there's a couple songs that are been around for a while that they've never been released. And I never found the right situation for them to be used, but I do believe they're really good songs and they fit for what this record was going to be. So yeah, I dusted them off and recorded them and added to the new ones.
Oh, exciting.
Yeah. Well, you had an album in 2016, Enjoying the Ride. Can you talk a little bit about how has your songwriting evolved since from that album to the new one?
Well, I think you're always trying to evolve. I think if you're not, I always want to be learning and growing, and if not, then you're dead. You're done. And and part of that's who you're surrounded by. Obviously working the last 10 years with Aerosmith, and thanks to Joe Perry, I'm in 3 bands.
Yes.
The Joe Perry, he brought me into Hollywood Vampires along with Chris Wise in 2018 and Glenn Sobel to join Tommy Hendrickson, Joe Perry, Alice Cooper, and Johnny Depp. Mm-hmm. And then Joe had me involved with his Joe Perry project, which I'm the MD for. So really grateful to Joe. And but you can't help but be influenced and be surrounded by those great legendary artists. I'm a kid from, I say I'm a kid. I'm a guy who grew up singing gospel music with his family in Alabama, and and there was an amazing time. It was bluesy gospel, Southern gospel, and fortunately I had some older cousins who turned me on to, look, you need to know these guys. This is the Beatles. This is the Rolling Stones. This is Led Zeppelin. And I was really drawn to those English bands. They were influenced by the very thing I was singing growing up. I mean, I was singing with my family from the time I was 5 and touring. So it was always been in my blood. And what I recorded 15 years ago, 20 years ago is different now. And to answer your question, Enjoying the Ride was done with this producer, Mark Needham, who's known. He's mixed many legendary records like The Killers, first couple of records, and Fleetwood Mac and Pink, and my songwriting collaborator, Charlie Midnight, who I've written with for the last 20-something years. Charlie wrote Living in America He wrote a song that Joni Mitchell recorded because she loved his lyric. I mean, and he produced Joe Cocker and the Doobie Brothers. And so I was always blessed to have those mentors. And they wanted to do a record with me that was a little more, I guess you could say country influenced, and really more Southern, I guess, is appropriate because I grew up in Alabama around country music, and I know what that is, but I don't sing country. I can, but it's not really. I think I'm more of a Southern bluesy, rootsy rock singer. You know, that's my thing. And you know, there's not a lot of differences especially in the South, between country, gospel, blues, and rock. It all kind of merges in many ways, especially growing up that corridor between Birmingham, Muscle Shoals, and Memphis. You know, there's something in the water there, you know, and I was fortunate enough to be raised in it. And so that was a great, fun record to do with those guys. And in fact, I pulled a song from that record that I re-recorded called Live for the Song, which was that will be on this new record, which is, you know, basically talking about being on the road, being in a band, being on a bus and touring and all what it takes to get there. But it's worth it all when you hit the stage, and the lights come on, you know, and you hear the guitars and the drums, and you know, you live for the song. And that's my life, man. I live every day for the song. I serve the song. So whatever the song needs is where I go.
Oh, that's awesome. So cool. Well, with this new music being released in 2024, what plans do you have as going out there and performing them live? Are you going to do any touring? Are you going to do any, like, I guess maybe isolated live performances to, I guess, showcase this new music?
Well, I certainly want to, and nothing's on the books right now, but we're trying to make some plans to make that happen. You know, I'm fortunate that I do get to tour with all these other amazing artists, and truly, you know, that's where, like I said before, live touring is where most of us can make our money. And to get to, you know, work with these bands, you know, I have to stay with that first and foremost, but to work in my own shows, we'll just have to take it a bit at a time. I have a few things potentially lined up, but no specific full-on scale tour. We're kind of have to see how that goes, but I'd love to do it, and hopefully we'll be able to build on these few shows and to get further in between whenever Aerosmith goes back out and Hollywood Vampires and you know, so forth.
Absolutely.
Well, the writing collaboration for Just Feel Better, I know after that you got together with Damon Johnson and a band called Whiskey Falls. Can you talk a little bit about that band and you know, how you guys got together? And you had one album, I believe, in 2007?
Yes. You know, again, that was I met a couple of guys when I was living in Los Angeles. I moved from Alabama with my wife in LA, and we lived there many years. And we've been in Nashville now for a while. And when I was in LA, I through a mutual friend, I met a couple guys, and they already started this band, and they needed a guy who could sing and play keys. And I heard what they were doing. They heard my stuff, and like, wow, this would fit. And I really wasn't sure until we sat down and wrote together, because I thought, well, that's where we'll know. And the first day we wrote together, we wrote 2 songs that were amazing that ended up on the record. And we were still looking for a guitar player. And at the time, you know, Damon and I have a long history. We came up in the clubs in Birmingham together, and he had success with his band Brother Kane. Yeah. And then he and I toured with John Waite back in 2001 and 2002. And then from there, he started playing with Alice Cooper, and he was still playing with Alice Cooper at the time. But somehow I was able to convince him that, hey, you should do this. And I like to say, if that's the band that if it came out in the 70s, it would have been a rock band. Yeah. But it was really the only format that would fit. And we were very cutting edge at the time for the country radio format. But country radio loved us, because when we played for audiences, it's like, this is classic rock audience. Because I like to say we were Sweet Home Alabama meets Hotel California. That's what we were, you know, harmonies with a little edge to it. And of course, now Damon's playing with Leonard Skinner. So, and that's pretty funny. Anyway, we had a lot of success early on. We had 2 singles in the top 20 at top 40 country radio. And then it all came to an end when the market crashed in into 2007. And, for many artists, it was tough to keep it going. Our tour support went away, our record label folded, and we all had to get back to work. So, but it was great memories. I loved that band and thought it should have been. I still hear from many people today that band should have been bigger than it was. Yeah. But, it's just timing sometimes. That's a big part of it.
I couldn't agree more. I'm having a hard time forming this question the right way, so forgive me if I don't make any sense, but I'm going to try to make sense out of what I'm trying to say. So, for you as the songwriter and obviously the performing artist that you are, on a satisfactory level, where do you get more satisfaction from? Your songwriting being picked up by other artists, or you performing your songs and keeping them for yourself? Does that make any sense at all?
No, I get what you're saying, and let me say this. Absolutely, singing your own song to an audience and them receiving it and getting it and giving you the love for it is the most satisfying thing in the world, by far. But if, I don't know, name a successful artist, Garth Brooks, Taylor Swift, I don't know. If they said they wanted to record your song, I would be just as happy. When I heard Carlos Santana was going to record a song that I wrote and Steven Tyler was going to sing it, I was so excited because, that's legendary. And that's, the money, all those things add into that. But it's just, and hear it on the radio, that's pretty great too. But when you're actually performing it, I think it's like the only thing better than that, I would say, is when you're in the room writing the song, because I consider myself a collaborator, and I'm writing with somebody and the light bulb comes on and, oh, I got it. And you play, you sing that hook and you get chill bumps and it's like, holy crap, this is going to be an amazing song. Yeah, that is as good as it gets. And I think everything after that, it's a little bit of diminishing returns, but it's all great, because most of the songs you write, no one's ever going to hear. So you have to be fulfilled in that moment, like, hey, I still got it, the music's still there. That's reassuring. And because I think every artist goes through that phase of, I wouldn't say a drought, but, you have your seasons. In some seasons, it all flows, and some you're meant to take it in, be influenced or be inspired. So, absolutely, singing to an audience your song is amazing.
I don't want to be a Debbie Downer when I'm taking this question here to you. When you have an artist that picks up your song and they record it, and these songs are your babies, and they record it and you think to yourself, that's not what I envisioned the song to be. Have you had those moments before?
A little bit. I would say I've been pretty lucky, but I know many successful songwriters that are friends of mine that were disappointed, and, they just have to let it go. I'm like, in some cases they could say, well, the song would have done better if they produced it right or, took the right approach. It's a little disconcerting when you hear it done and they change things up or the arrangement, and it kind of, throws you, and you have to be able to let go of that. It's, I don't know. I think all of our egos want us to believe that, no, this is how you should do it. This is the right way. So you do have to let it go. But that has, like I said, I've been pretty lucky. I haven't had too much of that, but occasionally it has happened. And I'm just like, okay, well, it is what it is. Move on.
Very good.
recently and talking to an artist where, well, you know, when the night before they released their new album or whatever, they just had, you know, anxiety and they were pacing up and down across the bus. Does that happen to you? You know, because it's very, you know, the stuff that you're releasing is very emotional. It's heartfelt. It's you know, a piece of you that you're putting out there in the world. Does that bother you a little bit? Kind of worried about how people are going to take it, or is it just, you know, hey, this is my stuff, and if they like it, great.
Yeah, I think it's different nowadays. It used to be when there was so much on the line, you know, you needed it to do a certain number because you're signed to a label and the money invested, the man hours put into it. And if we don't get the numbers or the results, you know, it can be, you can feel the pressure and just hope that, because you don't really know, you know, the best labels, the best A&R guys, the best bands with the money, the best, you know, all the money, they still get it wrong or got it wrong most of the time. Nowadays, there's just so much out there. I'm just happy that anybody hears it, you know. And no, I mean, it's yeah, I don't really, it doesn't stress me too much. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, I feel confident about it. At the time in my life, I feel like I know who I am, and this sounds right to me. It feels good to me. It rings true to my soul. I'm not faking anything. This is the authentic me, you know, and I think people, you know, you're not going to get everybody. You can't, what's the old adage? You can't please everybody all the time. You know, you just put it out there and do your best work and be honest and true. And, you know, and I think some people will receive it. And those who don't, I can't worry about that.
Exactly. Well, you know, and maybe to spawn another question off of what Jeff just asked you there, when it comes down to the finished product, when you are done recording your stuff and you have to walk away from it and quit tinkering with it, have you ever had those moments where you said to yourself, I wish I could have a redo on this song?
Of course.
Do you? Yes. Because some artists will say, no, I have to walk away and have to be done with things. But talk a little bit more about it.
Well, that's true. You do. I mean, look, you know, Bob Dylan never would listen to any of his albums. He recorded it and left it. And that's probably the best way to approach it, because you do have to keep moving. You have to keep moving forward motion. And, you know, I know guys who have tinkered with something to death, to where it's like, well, you went too, it's like whittling at a piece of wood on an art, and you keep doing it and you've gone too far. You know, at some point you got to let it go. And it is, you know, it's there, it's done. And even the imperfections, that's the beauty in it as well. But yeah, especially if you're a singer, I could have sung that better. You're always going to think that. I mean, I can't tell how many times I've heard that from great artists, from hit songs. It's like, yeah, you know, I wish I'd done it this way, but it's a photograph in time of where you were then.
Yeah, fair enough. Jeff, you got the next one? Well,
yeah, you probably answered this question a million times, but can you take us back to when you joined Aerosmith? Can you talk a little bit about how that opportunity came about, and did you have to audition or how did that work?
Yeah, man, it's a pretty amazing story if you got a minute or two.
We do.
Oh, yeah.
Well, let me start with this. I have to give thanks to this guy, Marty Fredrickson, who recommended me to the band, to Steven. You know, I've known Marty for years because Marty got his break co-writing with Damon and producing Brother Kane. And this is in the 90s. And they opened up for Aerosmith, and John Kolodner, who was the A&R guy for Aerosmith at the time, loved Brother Kane. So did Aerosmith. And he's like, well, who's the guy working with these guys? And it's Marty. So he got Marty to start working with Aerosmith, and, you know, Marty wrote many songs with him, including Jaded, and co-produced records with him. And so he was a trusted source. So, you know, I always say part of the success in this business is not just your talent, but your work ethic, but also the kind of person you are, because it's about relationships. Mm-hmm. And I've known Marty for 25 years, and at that point we had never worked together. but he knew me. He saw Whiskey Falls. He knew I was singing all those high harmonies and playing acoustic and bass and mandolin and piano. And so when they called Marty, it's like, we need a guy. We're about to do this European tour. Do you know somebody? And so Marty recommended me, and I'm, he told me about it, and then I saw that they were already starting the tour in Istanbul. I'm like, well, they've worked out whatever they needed to work out and got somebody else, and didn't think anything of it. And I'm in Alabama in Birmingham visiting my mom and dad for Mother's Day. And my mom still plays at this church, and her Mother's Day wish was for me to go sing with her and Dad. And I said, okay, Mom, I'll come and do that. And as we're getting to get in the cars, I get the phone call, no ID phone call, and I'm like, no way, can't be. And it was, sure enough, it was Steven Tyler calling from Istanbul. And so I told Mom, you go ahead, I'll catch up with you. And we talked, and it was a great conversation, talked about influences and what I was doing, and made sure I had a passport. You got to be ready when that opportunity calls. I had to have all the things ready to go and my gear and everything. Anyway, so drive back to Nashville after the church service, and I got home and had started immediately downloading, putting whatever albums I had of Aerosmith into my phone and charting, and packed, ate dinner, and I had enough time to take a shower and get to the airport the next morning. So I stayed up all night doing that with the help of my wife, of course. And then on the flight to Istanbul, I'm just woodshedding, making notes. Yeah. And then, get to Istanbul and get checked in the hotel, and then they take me over to the venue. It was kind of a production day there, and I meet with Steven. Of course, you're inundated with, at that point in time, I had slept in 2 days, right? Mm-hmm. And there's 100 people in the crew, and it's just all these people, and I'm like, hi, nice to meet you, all that. And so we go into Steven's dressing room, and just me and Steven and an acoustic guitar, and the first song you wanted me to sing was Crying, because it has one of the higher harmony parts, because I'm singing above Steven, full voice. He doesn't want falsetto. He wants somebody who can bring it, right? Mm-hmm. And I guess since I'm a little kid, singing harmonies has been my thing. I know how to blend with someone else, go where they are as a singer, and match their articulations and phrasings in the moment. So we sang Crying, and we get to the end of the first chorus, and Steven kind of just stops, puts his arms out. He's an emotional person. He has a beautiful heart. His eyes are welled up, and he says, "Where have you been?" And I'm like, waiting for this moment to happen, and I get all emotional because I'm sleep deprived, and this is beautiful, man. This is amazing. And we hugged it out. And, he just talks about like his big influences, like the Everly Brothers, and how us singing together could be like that. And I'm like, yeah, man, I get that. That's what I've always done in my life, and, it's interesting because I loved anything with great harmonies, whether it was the Eagles or the Everly Brothers or Def Leppard or anything that had great singing. And I just think it's a universal thing that people love to hear. Yeah. However heavy and hard it is or however soft it is, it doesn't matter. So he got that, and I got that from, we felt the same. And then I jammed with the band on stage, and there's a moment where we're playing Jaded, and I'm playing acoustic on that one, and the music stops in the last chorus, and Steven's holding a note, and I'm a third above him, and I didn't know the live arrangement that they did that, and I'm thinking to myself in the moment, I wish I got a bigger breath. And I'm like, by God, I'm not going to let go of this note, and I'm starting to see stars, right? And Steven's jokingly looking like, he's looking at like he's got a watch on, and we're just holding it, and it's just us. And then the band comes back in, and when the band came back in, the whole band turns around and smiles at me, and I'm like, okay, I think I got the gig. All right, so that's great, right? And then I walk off stage, I meet my tech, this guy we called Haystacks from West Virginia, and he goes, well, that was amazing. but you've got so much to learn. I don't know where to begin. And so I had that night for a third night in a row to stay up all night, learn, the mapping of the keyboard. In some songs, there's 4 different sections, there's strings here, piano here, whatever. Right. And I had I was able to listen to a recording of a previous show and isolate what was played before and pick out what was sung, because you also had to use with an iPad, where to sing the harmony. Do I go underneath Stephen here? This line, sing all the harmony here. This line, just sing these 3 words. Skip the next line. Very specific things. Oh, now you got to switch to this sound here, it's a lot more than just knowing the song and playing the parts or singing, So, third night in a row, stay up. I go have breakfast with Haystacks, and I said, "Hey, man, I know I'm supposed to go to the venue in a couple hours to get my in-ears set and my, everything. I can be ready for the show that night, but I got to lay down for 3 hours. I hadn't slept in 3 days." And he goes, "Okay, man. Well, you lay down, and we'll call you and make sure you get up." Well, they were calling, and just like in a dream, a distant phone ringing, and it's getting closer and closer. And he said he must have let it ring 30 times before I answered. And he said, "Buck, you need to get up, get dressed. There's been a mining accident. There's riots in the streets. We got to get out of here." And I literally thought I was still dreaming at first, no lie. He says it again, and I'm thinking, is he punking me? Because this is pretty cruel if he is. And he goes, "No, you got to do this." I'm like, "Oh, okay." And there was a tragedy where there was 300 men who lost their lives in the mines in Istanbul, and the people were upset because the miners had been asking for inspections from the government, and the government didn't want to slow down production. They collapsed, and these men lost their lives. And there were tear gas and rubber bullets right outside our hotel. So we got out of there, and the promoter canceled the gig because it was a National Day of Mourning. So it gave me 2 more days to sleep, learn the songs before my first show in Sofia, Bulgaria. So there you go. There was the Odyssey, and first show was but I got through it, and then next show was much better, and then we're golden from there. It was just it's been a magical mystery tour. What can I say? It's very surreal, just like you would think it would be.
That was an amazing story.
Yeah.
Told you it was take a minute or two.
I do want to fast forward here. Post pandemic, Hollywood Vampires have been pretty busy this past 2023. I guess as we're seeing warm weather approaching us Midwesterners here, what's in store with the Hollywood Vampires this 2024?
Nothing that I know of for this year. I do know they're working on a documentary that we made during the tour of Europe last year, and the few shows we did on the East Coast. And there's a live performance that we did in Boston that'll be part of that. I think that'll be the main thing that will be put out this year. And you never know. I mean, look, you're dealing with Johnny Depp's movie schedule. Alice Cooper's always touring. He's the Energizer Bunny. He's amazing. He's always working. And if Aerosmith isn't working, then the Joe Perry project will be working. So you got to deal with those schedules, and it all has to line up and planned out and way in advance. I mean, this tour that we did last year in Europe was supposed to be in 2020, and then it got pushed to 21. And then pushed again, and then it's like, okay, we're actually going to get to do this now. And so thankfully we did. And I know there will be more, but my guess would be that no shows this year, but you never know. We don't still know what will happen with Aerosmith. We're trying to get that back up and going, but we have to wait to see if, when Stephen will be ready. And that's just that's a healing thing that we have to be cautious of and be ready for. So, but there's I got a feeling that things will pick up, and I plan to be busy regardless. So,
yeah, fantastic.
Well, I know this last fall, I think you did some shows with Brother Kane we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about joining up with the reunion of that band?
Yeah, man. A couple years ago, Damon, he's like a big brother to me, and love that guy. And we've worked in many, like in Whiskey Falls or John Waite, and he told me that I always wondered why he didn't just keep that thing going, when he could. We all get busy, and next thing you know, 10 years has passed. What happened? And he says, "Man, I'm going to put Brother Kane back together, and I want you to be involved." And I'm like, "Wow." I'm so thankful that you're putting it back together. I love that music. It's a great catalog, and I'm totally didn't see it coming that you would want me involved. Well, we love to sing together, and the keyboard element, the first album, had all the Chuck Leavell keyboard parts on many songs. Yeah. So, he never got a chance to have that element to the band. And it was always just two guitars, bass, and drums, which sounded amazing. But I think he wanted to evolve it as well. He didn't want to be just that. He wanted to try some new things. He wrote 2 new songs that we put out this year. And they sound just like Brother Kane songs, but we got some Hammond B3 in there too. So, and, again, I serve the song. So what does the song need? Well, this song needs that growly, low John Lord stuff, like I do a lot with the Vampires, it's 1-5-1 distortion, and it just sounds so thick, and it works with the guitars so well. And then sometimes you need to be up here, and soulful, and Greg Allman, and so it's fun to get to add to that. And there were some songs that didn't have any keyboards in it that he says, I want to hear what this song would sound like with some piano in it. All right, let's try it. And, just make it work. And it definitely added a whole nother thing. I'm just had a lot of fun playing the shows. I got to play with those guys and hopefully get to do some more.
Oh, so cool.
And I think we will this year, actually.
Oh, so cool. Yeah.
Well, I wanted to ask you about your relationship with Chris Wise from Hollywood Vampires. I know you guys date all the way back to 1999's Tal Bachman album.
Yeah.
Is that where you guys first played together, or did you know him before that?
Yeah, absolutely. I was in the band, and at the time I was signed to Warner Chappell, and my band had just ended, and before I joined Tal, I was playing with Chris Steele, Stephen Steele's son.
Yeah.
And that led to Tal Bachman. And then, here's the guy's on Columbia Records. He's a priority. And I heard the songs like, well, these sound like hits. I'm in. And then Chris was the last one to come in. He was fresh to town. And we knew immediately, no, we got to have this guy. He brings so much to the table. And anyway, we go and make the record with Bob Rock, which was an amazing experience. And we thought, hey, man, we're going to work a lot together. We gelled and all that. Well, it wasn't until, 20 years later, in 2018 almost. Yeah, because we made the record actually in 98. That's when the record was made in Maui. Which, by the way, sounds amazing because you think, oh, you're making a record in Maui, but you're inside the studio every day looking out the at the window, like, oh, it must be nice to be out on the beach and look at the whales. So I came back home from Maui with a studio tan. Like, I thought you were in Maui. I'm like, yeah, I'm working, Anyway, so thankfully, and it was just by karma or whatever you want to call it, because Tommy found Chris, and Tommy had seen me play and sing with Aerosmith and knew that I would be. So credit goes to Tommy Hendrickson for putting it together. But it was very come full circle and great to reunite with Chris. And, and the 2018 tour was amazing. We made a record during that run, the second album. And we all got to be a part of that. And, we thought, well, okay, 19, I was busy with Aerosmith. And 2020, we'll do some more Vampires. And then, of course, we all got, bumped until last year. But no, and I always look at, there's people in your life that you come in, that you just gel with. And in some cases it lasts for a period of time. In some places you take a pause and you circle back, but you feel like you pick up where you left off. And Chris is definitely one of those.
Awesome.
And what a talent. Yeah. What a singer. My God.
Yeah. No, I mean, we have so much talent on that stage with the Vampires, we can't possibly use it all. We're all singing. But, I mean, look, that audience, they're there to see Johnny Depp, and Alice Cooper and Joe Perry, And there's a lot of girls there to see Johnny. So when Johnny sings, it's like, we're just there to support him. And, of course, Alice is the master of ceremonies, and he's a legend, and it's so great to work with. That band, we have a lot of fun. Yeah. And there's so much talent, though. I mean, my gosh, and Chris brings so much to the table.
Yeah, we enjoy it.
Well, with your roots in Alabama and your migration to California, you're synonymous with the Calabama sound. Is that correct? Is that
that's what I call it.
Yeah, let's talk about it a little bit. The Calabama sound. That was a first for me when I read about it.
Well, it's a phrase I coined. I probably should trademark it. So no one
you should.
Maybe that'll be the name of the next album. Anyway, I look at it this way. Alabama is my roots. Yeah. The Southern gospel, the Southern rock, the blues, the Muscle Shoals, and at the end of the day, that's where it all begins. In California, when I moved there, originally, my wife was pursuing acting, and so I wasn't going to let the love of my life, move there without me. And so I was a fish out of water at first, but when the world lives on your block and you have different ways of thinking and cultures, and I think it's good for yourself, good for soul. Travel's good for you, and I think it helped shape me as a musician. It expanded my horizons. And besides that, I really love that whole Laurel Canyon scene, that sound, Crosby, Stills and Nash, the Eagles, Joni Mitchell, Jackson Brown, great songwriters, and that's what I always wanted to be like, if I could, write songs on that level. I don't know if I ever attain that, but that's the goal. And it lasts, that are courses you can sing along with, but also say something, that are not just generic, and, that's that sound, that California sound. I definitely, and it's a part of me, so, and I think that was really a big part of Whiskey Falls. I think now it's still a part of me and what I do now because, the bands I played with in California were probably more rock, heavier than what I would have done if I just stayed in Alabama or moved to Nashville at a young age. So I'm glad, and I think it'll come apparent when everyone can hear all the songs on the album that you get a little bit of all that.
Oh, fantastic. Well, we are running out of our allotted time for the evening. Got one last question for you.
Yeah, man.
The mystery of rock and roll. It's not a thing anymore with all the social media platforms, with along with the internet that has broken down those barriers. But for you as the artist and the fan of rock and roll music, what do you prefer? The mystery and mystique rock and roll once had, or do you like this new age of accessibility? Because if we didn't have the internet, we would not be doing this with you tonight.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword. I prefer the mystique. I mean, I was raised that way into it. There's something about the anticipation of really knowing, like you get the album and read the liner notes. Who's this? What do they look like? And not knowing every single detail. You're not pulling the curtain. You're removing that fourth wall. Pulling the curtain back. And sometimes it's better when you didn't. It was better when you just didn't know. But it is a necessary thing nowadays. Yes, we can reach more people without, having someone else, the gatekeeper, do it for us. We can reach people. Now, like I said before, when there's so much out there, it is hard to rise above the white noise of everyone, putting their stuff out there. But I also get to talk to you guys, and people can hear me and tell my story doing this podcast. And, I got to do albums with people like, oh, I need a guitar part in my buddy who's in LA. And I can just go online and in real time in the session, hear him playing. It's like, no, go back. I love what you did there. We're capable of doing that, I can do a record anywhere. I can write with anybody. I can be in another country and write with another guy back in the States. So there is a lot of benefits to that. I just think that sometimes as a society, we have to be careful. How much do we really need to know? And how much do artists really need to be doing all these other things where they could be maybe writing a song instead, or, playing a show or playing with a band, rehearsing, instead of, I know there's some people I've worked with and, not because they're younger, but maybe, they grew up not knowing what it's like not to have this. And so their attention span is totally about engaging with people online instead of being engaged with the person in front of you in the room. So I think that's not good. So like I said, it is a double-edged sword.
Well, we could probably talk to you for another hour. There's so many things.
I can talk to you guys too, man. This is great.
We missed a few things.
I really, honestly, I just because we're running out of our allotted time. There was so many questions that I did not ask you tonight that I wanted to ask you. Maybe we can have you on for a part 2 sometime. What do you think?
Well, anytime, guys. You let me know. I'm happy to. I know you try to keep it at a certain time. So sorry, I get long-winded sometimes, I guess. So
it's all good. You've been fantastic. So is there anything that we left off that you would like to plug or promote? Well,
I'll just reiterate that Just Feel Better, my single, will come out on all digital platforms February 23rd, along with the music video. And I'd love to hear from anyone. You can find me on Instagram, Buck Johnson Official, or Facebook. And I'd love to meet you all and engage and hopefully engage in person at a live show. So there you go.
That'd be fantastic. So this is how things are going to work out. We're about 2 weeks behind on our episodes, but once yours is ready to go, Jeff will clean up all of our boogers and make it sound all nice and squeaky clean.
Perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you so much. Buck, it was an honor.
Hey, man, pleasure. The honor was mine. It's great to meet you guys on the phone and, look forward to talking to you again at some point.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, and by the way, Jeff and I want to take credit for Brother Kane reuniting.
Yeah, I know.
All right.
I know. When we had, I always joke with Eric about that because when we had Damon Johnson on, he's like, that ship sailed. I think we asked him, and he's like, I'm never going to do it. And then like a year later, I look and he's like, it's back together.
Yeah, but we put pressure on him. We did because we kept on saying to him, man, you guys never put one bad album out. There was never one bad album.
No, it's great catalog, and it goes. I tell everybody, says, listen to that third album, man. It really progressed. It evolved, the whole sound of the band. And I've been after his butt for so many years why aren't you doing this, man? It's like, that's a brand. I mean, people know the name Brother Kane. There's enough people out there that would want to hear. I guess, he was just discouraged in some ways in the business part of it. And it's like, don't worry about that, man. Just focus on the music and with others. It's a lot of work, man. To even for Brother Kane to get out and do shows, and he does a lot of the heavy lifting. So I'm thankful for him to put that time and effort into it, because honestly, he could just be playing with Leonard Skinner, and most guys would just be doing that, and probably everyone else thinks he's crazy for working so hard. But I'm thankful that he does do it.
Yeah, we are too. We're real thankful. So, Buck, we won't keep any longer. Like I said, we'll have this out probably within probably more like about a week and a half at the latest. And man, we just can't thank you enough. It was a great interview.
Well, thanks, guys. I appreciate y'all. Y'all have a good evening.
You too. Take care.
All right, take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Everybody grinds the stone and makes their own mistakes. Hide in the headlights, fight the grip of fear. You can make your dreams come true, but you just can't do it here. Hey. Everybody eyes the gun and screams inside their head. Everybody bites their tongue and pays their bills instead. Hide in the spotlights, fight the grip of death. You can have the air you need, but you best not take one breath. Hey. Roll the dice. Take your chances. Everybody knows the game is fixed, there is no prize. Everybody pulls the plug and says their last goodbyes. Move to the sunshine, fight the grip of nights. If they ever take from you, then you plug out both their eyes. Hey. Roll the dice. Take your chances.
Welcome to the night. You think you know Night Demon? Then the Night Demon Heavy Metal Podcast is for you. Step into the darkness as we peel back the curtain to give you an unprecedented, all-access look into the mind and the heart of the demon. We're talking band history, song analysis, studio anecdotes, stories from the road. It's everything a diehard Night Demon fan could want and more. This is the only place to learn the inside scoop The deep dive trivia, the untold tales from the band members themselves and those closest to the Night Demon story. Need more? The sacred Night Demon Crypt will be pried open to reveal demo recordings that have never before seen the light of day, all with in-depth commentary by the band and the people who were there for the writing and recording process. This is a gold mine, a treasure trove of all things Night Demon. Head over to nightdemon.net or wherever you listen to podcasts.